Hello, Dreamcatchers, and welcome to Season 3 of The Writer's Haven. I am your host, Helena, and to say I'm excited about our guest lineup for Season 3 would be the understatement of the decade. To help kick things off is an author of extraordinary talent and accomplishment. Victoria Christopher Murray has been in the business of writing for almost 3 decades, among the first successful African-American Christian literary authors. She originally self-published her first novel, Temptation, which was quickly snatched up by Time Warner's Walkworthy Press. Since then, she's written over 30 books and has received numerous awards for her work, including the Golden Pen Award for Best Inspirational Fiction and the Phyllis Wheatley Trailblazer Award for being a pioneer in African-American fiction. In 2016, Victoria won the coveted NAACP Image Award in Outstanding Literary Work for her novel, Stand Your Ground. She has a very successful co-writing partnership with author Rashonda Tate Billingsley, and together they have written several books, including If Only for One Night, Should Have Been Me, and A Blessing and a Curse, which is my personal favorite from the Jasmine Cox and Rachel Jackson Adams drama saga. Victoria and Rashonda founded Brown Girls Books and received the 2016 AAMBC Literary Award for Indie Publishers of the Year. Selling over 1 million books in print, Victoria is one of the country's top African-American contemporary authors, but it doesn't stop there. This overachiever just inked a deal with Lifetime Entertainment to option 3 of the 7 books in her 7 Deadly Sins book series. Okay, she's only written 2 of them, okay? Hashtag author goals. We have a lot to unpack today with this amazing literary gem. So without further delay, please join me in welcoming New York Times best-selling author, NAACP award-winning author, and my sister scribe, mentor, and friend, Victoria Christopher Murray.
I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome to the Haven. Now, so hearing all of that, and there's so many other accomplishments that you have that I didn't even list, like Author of the Year and Best Christian Fiction Author. Hearing all of those accolades and accomplishments, I mean, what does that do for you? How do you absorb all of that?
It's funny because it's part of what I do. It's just my job. It's a career. I just happen to have a career that I love. And I do it well enough to get paid for it and recognized for it. So none of it goes to my head or any of those things. It's just part of my career.
Right. So, I mean, it's just kind of an added bonus.
Yes.
But you're not writing for the accolades or the money or the...
I don't even write for the TV series. I write novels. I stay in my lane. I've always wanted to write novels, and that's what I do.
Okay, so you're often referred to as a Christian author.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
You know what? I don't even know. When I wrote my very first novel, Temptation, I was just writing a novel about people that I know, you know, just characters that I could relate to. And it was really interesting because my agent said to me, "Oh, this is Christian fiction." And I had never heard of Christian fiction. Had you? I mean, 20 years ago? Never heard of it. I was just writing about people who had the same drama, the same problems as everyone else, but it was kind of like they solved their problems in a different way. But it was very interesting because I was the first African-American to do this as a writer, and so it was a little bit different because the Christian publishers felt my books were way too risque.
Yeah.
They felt that it had sex in there, had people, and I was like, well, Christians, I know. I'm not talking about anybody else.
And were there a lot of fiction? I mean, there were a lot of nonfiction books.
There were nonfiction, but there were not fiction books. And I remember there was a pastor who said to me, he had read Temptation, and he said he didn't think it could be done. He didn't think that you could write a book filled with drama and all and still give God the glory.
Right.
And so he was so happy to see that it could be done. But I wasn't trying to go out there and carve a new path. It just happened. I was blessed that it happened.
Yeah.
And it happened with me.
Yeah, and you know, that's interesting because there were other authors. You trailblazed it, but then there was Kimberly Lawson Roby.
Yeah,
and
Kim Lawson Roby. Now, she came before me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she came before me, and she had
But was it dubbed Christian fiction
hers
at that
not
time?
at first. Not at first. But so she would, if you were to say that, she would be the trailblazer in this because of the Curtis Black series. But I think people had said that Temptation was Christian fiction because the book had scriptures in it, actual scriptures where the characters were reading and studying, and I was just writing what I knew at the time. I wasn't trying to write Christian fiction or any other kind of fiction. I was just trying to write.
Right, and we were discussing off camera about the self-publishing work that you did with Temptation, and then how quickly it was picked up by Time Warner. And I said you were only a self-published author for 5 minutes.
Well, you know, it was 2 years, and so it doesn't sound like a long time, especially in today's times. This was back, I self-published at the end of 1997, and it took my agent 2 years to sell my book to a major publisher because they hadn't seen anything like it before.
Right.
And again, I didn't know I was writing something different. So I was just writing, and it was a little bit of a challenge because the Christian publishers didn't want to touch me. And then the mainstream publishers wondered if I had too much religion or spirituality in there. But I have drama in there, so that's all people care about. And so I've been able to, 30 books later, here I am.
So what inspires your writing?
You know, it's really interesting because are you saying what inspires the ideas or where do... I do believe, if I'm going to get into any spiritual part of this, I do believe that this is a gift that I've been given. It's a gift from God. And so the gift would never be given to me incompletely.
Right.
So I have the gift of the writing and then the discipline. And then every idea, every book I'm going to write is already inside of me. I once heard Michael Jackson say that. He said every song he was going to write was already deeply inside of him, and it was his job to get it out. And I was like, Michael, you feel me. God put all of the ideas in there, and it's just my job to get it out.
Okay. So in the intro, I talked about the 7 deadly sins.
Yes.
What had you thinking about writing a series like that?
Okay, now this is an interesting story.
Okay.
And I don't think I've ever told the whole story.
All right now.
But now since it's all the papers have been signed and everything. This in 2011. Do you remember the author Vicky Stringer?
Yes.
Okay, she was saying that she wanted to work on a book with me. And she was talking about the 7 deadly sins.
Okay.
And she was going to do that. And she said, let's start with lust. And this is what we're going to do. So Candy Jackson, who was a new author at the time.
And she was on the show in season 1.
Oh, okay. So Candy Jackson and I started working on lust together.
Okay.
And so, and this was in 2011. That's how long ago. What, 7 years ago now? Well, 7 is God's number of completion. So, and so, but we were trying to figure out how we should do it because then Vicky said, you know what, Victoria, you need to be writing the 7 deadly sins. It's perfect
so she pulled
for you.
out.
So she pulled out. And so Candy and I were trying to figure out, well, how do we make it? Do we make it in this Christian fiction genre? Or do we make it a little bit more risque, like erotica? Or do we do it like urban fiction, you know, the way it was started? So Candy and I went back and forth, and we put it aside, and we worked on other projects, and she worked on her books, and I worked on my books. And so we never did it. We did like maybe half the book together. And then I wrote a book called Stand Your Ground. And I love that book. It's one of my favorites of all the books I've written. But the thing that was interesting about Stand Your Ground was it won all of these awards. Because it was a social commentary about the Stand Your Ground law.
And very timely.
It was. And it was about the Stand Your Ground law. And so I wanted to write a book that really faced that took care of all of those issues. And it ended up winning every single award out there.
Including the NAACP, which I mentioned
Yes,
earlier.
and then Library Journal Award, all kinds of things like that. And the thing that was so interesting was afterwards, I ended up being intimidated by my own book. Because after I wrote that book, I was afraid that people would then read all of my next books and then would say, nothing's as good as Stand Your Ground.
Or the ones before it.
Yeah, well, for some reason, I was stuck on Stand Your Ground.
Okay.
I think if I was comparing it to the books before, I would have been okay. But it was because this one, everybody just thought so much about it. It had more reviews on Amazon than any book I've ever had. It was everything about that book. And so for the first time in my career, I wrote that book in 2015. In 2016, I didn't have a book because I couldn't write. I just could not write. And my agent said, okay, you need to write because you have a contract. You're going to have to figure out a way. And she said, what about if you focus on a book that is totally different than anything that they can compare to Stand Your Ground? And she said, what about, and I had told her about Lust, because at one point, Candy and I had gone to my agent and we were like, well, what should we do with this? And she read it and she was like, I don't know. And so then she said, what about Lust? It's so different. It's part of this series you want to do. It's so different. Nobody will ever be able to compare Lust to Stand Your Ground.
Yeah.
And so then I picked up the book and she tore up the first half and I had to go back and rewrite that and then wrote the rest of the book. And Lust did so well that they said, let's go ahead and do Envy and Greed. So that's how, so that was a long story.
Do you think the same reader of Stand Your Ground also would read the 7 Deadly Sins?
Yes. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And I think because I've been blessed to develop Victoria Christopher Murray readers.
You do have quite a following.
And so I think they'll just read a story that I write and they accept it for what it is. So I don't have people who say to me, you're a Christian fiction writer anymore. Because after 30 books, people say, well, I don't think Stand Your Ground was Christian fiction. I think, and Lust, was that Christian fiction? So people just accept what I write now, and I like that.
It was a pivotal book for you. Was it a pivotal time as well in your life and experiences?
I think for all of us. It was such a tough social time. You know, we were going through all of those murders, and I wanted to take the anger I felt and put it inside a book.
Wow. Yeah. So what kind of research did you do for that book?
It's really interesting. I didn't have to do very much research. Because we've been watching Stand Your Ground happening in front of us. From Trayvon Martin, it was really the Jordan Davis case that made me want to write that book. It was a lot of people think it was Trayvon Martin, but it was Jordan Davis. And then I was writing it, and the Michael Brown situation happened, and I'm sitting in my office like typing as an angry woman. But I had to get the anger out, and I'm really glad I wrote that book. Not only to educate people on the Stand Your Ground law, but then to also get all of that anger out of me.
Right. And so in writing the book Lust, you already had in your mind the other 6? Or did it just start with Lust and you thought
Well, because Vicki said Lust and the 7 Deadly Sins series, I always had the 7 Deadly Sins in my head. Lust was a great place to start. I mean, if you're going to start with the 7 sins, shouldn't you start with lust?
Yeah.
Not sloth, you know?
Right.
But you know, that's what I try to do. Every book I write should be different and should be a different experience for the reader. If I ever start writing books that sound the same, then that's the end. Everything should be a different experience.
And did you find that the marketing of the books were different? Not necessarily the process, but how you marketed them.
No,
because to me it's almost like 2 different authors almost. Even though I know it's you.
I never thought about that. And that was what my agent needed me to do psychologically. but I knew it would still be the same readers.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a compliment when you say it's almost two different authors, because that means that I could write. I'm supposed to be able to write anything, and that is something that I always try to tell even new authors. People say, "What genre are you in?" And that's one question I don't like, because I'm in the genre of whatever book is in my heart at that moment. That's the genre you should write. And so with Stand Your Ground, I thought it was contemporary fiction. We talked about Sharon Lucas earlier. She was saying she thought it was a thriller. Some people thought it was a mystery. Everybody brought their own experiences.
Because there was some suspense in it. That's true. I hadn't thought about that too.
I hadn't thought about that at all. And so if I were writing to the mystery genre, I would have written that differently. If I were writing to a Christian fiction genre, I would have written it differently. So I think we should all write to the heart genre. What is the book that's in your heart now?
Right.
And write it.
Right. So let's talk about your partnership with
Rashonda Tate
Yes,
Billingsley.
and how you guys came together to co-author books and in the process.
Yeah, did other things. Rashonda and I do so many things together. We were friends, really good friends, and she's an author as well, both with Simon & Schuster, almost for the same amount of time. And one day, even though we were different imprints, and one day her publisher saw Rashonda and I talking, she said, "You two should do a book together." We had never thought about that. And so we said, yeah, we should. And so I had this character, Jasmine Cox Larson Bush, who was a first lady. Rashonda had her character, who was a first lady, and we brought them together. And they caused havoc. Because my character is this really nice person.
She really is.
And she had to go up against Rashonda's, the ghetto chick. And so it's been a lot of fun. Now, if Rashonda were on the show, she'd probably change it all around.
Of course.
But it has been the most fun I've ever had writing with Rashonda.
Because you've partnered with other writers.
Yes, well, I actually, one other, who was a young writer, Princess Gooden, who was great too. But I have so much fun writing with Rashonda because we know each other. And so I write a chapter, and then she has to respond to it in real time as Rachel.
Okay.
And then Jasmine has to respond to Rachel in real time. And we've never changed each other's words or anything.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we've done a couple of books now. I think we've done 2 books outside of Jasmine and Rachel. And so we're trying a different writing process, but it's still been really good.
Okay. And so with that process, I'm sure there are very strict deadlines on when you have to get the whole book in.
Yeah.
But at the very beginning, you first decide what the theme is going to be. Like, how does that come together?
Well, when we're writing Rachel and Jasmine, we sit there together and we say, okay, their husbands are going to be up for an award or a leadership position. And so both of them want it. Let's start writing. And I get a little bit more antsy than Rashonda as we get near the end and we don't know what's going to happen. And she's like, girl, we always figure it out. So I get more antsy than her.
Okay.
But by the time we get near the end, then we talk about how the ending should be. We never know the ending ahead of time.
So are you all outlining it together? Or you're not outlining it at all?
We have not outlined the Jasmine and Rachel books. The other 2 books we wrote together, If Only for One Night. I love that book. And it should have been me. We did outline.
Okay. Now, what is that process look
We just
like?
get on the phone and talk, which is something we do 5-6 times a day anyway.
Okay. May as well be talking about a book.
Yeah, so we might as well talk about the book that we're writing together. And we just get on the phone and talk it out and say, what about this? What about that? Now, if it changes, that's okay. Just like if you're writing your own book. If it changes, it's okay.
It's okay.
It should be. Because you need to be led by the characters.
Right. Right, and birthing them. So do you guys do like a full character development of each character that is a main character in the book?
I do. I do a full character resume.
And what does that look like?
It looks like an actual resume. I have a resume. I don't know anything else to call it.
Okay.
Where I actually put in the character's address, how many siblings they have, their background, what scares them the most in life, their favorite colors. What was it? I even ask if I were to go to their Facebook page, who would be on it. Everything that I put on that resume doesn't show up in the book. But I have to know these people in order to write their story. And that's what I do.
And how long does it take for you to develop the resume and the character?
That's good. I will spend a good 2 weeks on it. And again, everything that I put in the resume, I just spend time with the character. So that means when I'm going in the grocery store, I'm thinking about that character. When I go work out, I'm thinking about that character. I ask their names. A book I'm working on now, Pride. I couldn't figure out the guy's name until this morning when I was out walking. And I was like, oh my God, now I know his name. Because I wait for them to tell me. Because sometimes I've written books, even in Envy. I liked a name, Ariana, and I named the character Ariana, and the character kept saying, no, my name's Keisha. And I said, no, your name's Ariana.
I was about to say, who's Ariana?
And she's like, no, my name's Keisha. You can call me Ariana if you want. And halfway through the book, I said, okay, you win. Your name's Keisha.
Now, you have an extraordinary gift for writing and storytelling. But you also spend a lot of time with other authors and helping them to hone their craft and their
I love
their
teaching
skill.
writing.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, why do you decide to spend so much time in doing that? What is it about?
I don't know. I just love it. I love talking about writing. And if I hadn't been taught, when I wrote Temptation, my very first novel, I wrote it because I was talented. I was so talented. I was filled with all this talent. And then I met an editor. And I realized I didn't have that much talent. But I had enough talent that I needed to now go learn the craft. And then I started taking classes at the University of Iowa and classes at UCLA and any place I could find a class. I still take classes. I'm taking Shonda Rhimes' screenwriting class right now. And I just love learning. And then I have all this learning inside of me. And I'm like, okay, I need to give it to some people. And I love teaching. I love teaching. It's not that I think I'm doing anything all that special or good. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. And shouldn't I give back because so much has been given to me?
Yeah, but where do you find the time? I mean, you just mentioned Pride. Greed hasn't come out yet. So
but I finished Greed because I had to finish Greed for the Lifetime agreement. Okay. So it's done. Okay. Greed is done. I've never been this ahead of schedule in life, but I better get moving on Pride because they've optioned all 7 books. Okay. They've commissioned the first 3 for production.
Gotcha.
And so if the first 3 do well, they'll do the other 4. So they've optioned them without them being written.
Do you have any idea of how soon the viewer, will get to see?
The movies will all be out next year. I don't know dates or anything. If I had to guess, I would think maybe the first movie will be out in February. If I had to guess, but that has nothing to do with anything they've told me. But they want to get them out. Okay. Because I'm in partnership with Bishop T.D. Jakes.
Yes, and someone else.
Sean Robinson.
Okay.
Yeah, Sean Robinson is the one who actually, do you remember her from Access Hollywood?
Yes, actually.
Yes, and she's the one that actually optioned the 7 Deadly Sins at the beginning of 2017. And then she spent the whole year trying to sell it, working diligently because she wants to get into this part of the business. And so I'm really excited for her because her first deal is a a partnership with Bishop T.D. Jakes and Lifetime. 7 movies. 7 movies.
That's outstanding.
That's her first deal out of the... And she's working on some other things that I can't talk about right now, but we'll be able to announce something else pretty big in a little while.
Okay. Now, how involved are you in the production?
Well, this is going to be very interesting. This is a funny story, and Sean and I laughed about that too. My agent wanted me to have a producing credit as a consultant or something. And I was like, no, I don't want Lifetime to say no. No, don't ask Bishop Jakes for that. And Sean and I were like, no, we're not going to ask for that. And then we asked, and Bishop Jakes was like, yeah, his company. Yeah, you should do this. Let's keep you engaged. So I'm going to be a consultant on them. So I'll have a producer's credit.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's not going to be anything new for you, though, right?
What do you mean?
Because you've had other work optioned.
I've had other works optioned, and all an option means is that somebody comes to you, they give you a little bit of money, they say, okay, we're going to take this project now, and we're going to shop it. So Sean Robinson took the project, went and shopped it, and now it's commissioned for development, meaning they have the money to do it.
Okay. All right, so this is going to be your first time acting as a consultant, and what does that mean exactly for you? Like, what
I don't know. I'm going to go to the set, and if they ask me some questions, I'll answer them.
And you know what? The reason why I ask, and we're going to talk about it in part 2. So Dreamcatchers, we're actually going to have a part 2 because obviously I can't get through all. I got like 20 more questions to ask her. So yes. Dreamcatchers, I hope you enjoyed my chat with author Victoria Christopher Murray. Victoria, again, has agreed to stay for part 2 of the discussion. So tune back in next week to hear our discussion on the art of writing. You can follow her writer's journey on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or visit her webpage at victoriachristophermurray.com. Catch Lust, Envy, and Greed on Lifetime and follow Victoria to hear more about her upcoming projects. As always, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Writers Haven Show. And tune into our YouTube, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Sonos, Alexa, SoundCloud, and Spotify channels to stream our shows and subscribe. Stay tuned for more inspiring guests in the Haven, and until next time, catch fire on purpose.
The color in my garden keeps the pink in my cheeks. I was very independent and thought I could take care of myself. I fell and I had to have Meals on Wheels. They're my savior. My name is Lola Silvestri. America, let's do lunch.
Drop off a hot meal and say hello. Volunteer by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.